Hey Tony, thanks for joining us for church today. I brought you in because you're the expert, so I wanted to ask you, what is Vision Ohio, and what's your role in it?
Wow, thank you very much, Pastor Tim. It's great to join brothers and sisters at Leesburg. And Vision Ohio, I'm glad you asked, is just a group of people who have a great passion about a vision. And that vision is we're asking God for a church a day in Ohio. And best numbers we have is there's maybe 70 churches a year planted in Ohio. So that's about every fourth or fifth day there's a new church in Ohio. And so we're asking God, among all the churches in Ohio that preach the gospel, that He would give us a church a day. And so that's what we're consumed with, and that's what we want to be a part of, that answering that prayer, having God do that. And I'm privileged to be the director of Vision Ohio, and began that full-time February 1st. So it's new for us and just loving it.
Good. So if you guys reach the goal, if God helps you reach the goal, you'll have to start praying for more days in a year. So
yes, so it'll become 2 a day, and it'll be 1 a day among the Grace Brethren.
There you go. It sounds good.
That's what we're after.
Now, you're talking about planting a church. How would you define the word church?
Great question. For me, because I'm not the smartest in the world, I start pretty simple, and I've always gone with the 5 ideas, 5 concepts, or 5 functions that church history's told me church is about, which is liturgia, personal worship, the diaconate, the service, the Didasco teaching, koinonia, fellowship, and then kerusso, the preaching. So for me, it's first about those functions, that we're doing all of those functions. And then it becomes an issue of polity as well. You know, how am I going to run the church? Elders, deacons, that kind of thing. So I begin with functions.
Okay. And church planting, this term, could you tell me where this metaphor comes from?
That's a great question as well. As far as I know, the metaphor just fits, I think, more the idea of the church is organic. And Matthew 13, the parable of the sower, the seeds. So we're putting seeds out to grow. And so we plant churches because we put the gospel out. Even in Vision Ohio, we use other biotic pictures, like we'll talk about the conception phase of the church, the prenatal, the birth, and the growing up. So those are other pictures that we use over here to talk about church planting.
So we can not just plant churches, we can birth new churches.
That's yes.
A way to talk about it. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
How important is strategy in church planting? And maybe you can give us some specific examples of strategies you guys use in Vision Ohio.
Well, for us, strategies are secondary. They are important, but that which is most important is just the vision and passion to reach the lost. You can have all the strategies in the world, but if I'm not willing to sell out to following Jesus on reaching the lost and the harvest, then it doesn't matter what my strategies are. But some of the strategies that we've used that's been fruitful here is we can see mother churches, daughter churches, and so there's mother-daughter relationships, and so we have 11, 12 new churches in Ohio, and some have come from that way. Others have come from a slightly, organic beginning in terms of almost like a home church, but then the weekly gathering of everybody, and we have a couple examples of those here in Ohio. We also have this other idea of the gather, shepherd, elder approach, and I've been using that, and that's produced one new church in Mount Sterling and doing one right now that we call Whitestone in North Columbus, and hope to do another one in Johnstown here in a couple months.
Okay. And then how do you measure then the success of a church plant?
Success technically is defined after 5 years. If you're still a functioning church, you're successful. Because 3 out of 5 fail, it's a tough work. It's very tough. So we define success by seeing just biblical function happen.
Mm-hmm. And those functions are the 5 that you talked about before, including service and worship. And I'll ask my church if they can recite the other 3 to see if they're paying attention.
Great question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one final question, because we're here talking about how Jesus is the groundwork for the church. I mean, He is the foundation, the bedrock.
Yes.
How can you tell 2 certain ways that Jesus is or has set the groundwork for your given local church or church plant?
Well, if you're asking how do you know if a given church like Leesburg, for example, is ready to plant a church, there's a couple ways. One, are you pregnant? It's a great question to ask and to think through. What does it mean to be pregnant? I think we know how pregnancy occurs, and so what's happened so that's there. And then that will probably lead to a backup question of what do the brothers and sisters in Leesburg, what's their vision and passion for the harvest? Because that drives everything.
So why don't you ask our church that question, and I'll leave them with that last question.
All right. Brothers and sisters in Leesburg, what is your vision and passion for the harvest there in northern Indiana, all of Indiana, as well as around the world?
We'll take that challenge. Thanks a lot, Tony.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.